Hello, Alex here, and in this video I want to show you how to make your own red scale film in 35mm, 120, or any sheet film format. Let's get into it. I don't want to get into the technical nitty-gritty details in this video, but broadly speaking, red scale is when you flip a film over and expose it through the base rather than exposing the emulsion side directly, exposing the color layers in the wrong order. And this gives you images that are made up of a wide range of red and orange tones, with some yellow and green mixed into the highlights and more green coming in the more you overexpose. It's a really nice look, but there aren't a lot of red scale films on the market, and the only constant for the last while has been Lomography's Loma Chrome red scale. Film I'm not really a big fan of. The two things that make a film particularly suitable for red scaling are as clear a base as possible and good sensitivity to the color red, since you're primarily using the red layer in the film to generate the image. That's as much technical stuff as I'll say there. But when you red scale film, you want to overexpose it by a couple of stops, usually 2 to 4 depending on the nature of the film, to compensate for all these technical shenanigans that we won't talk about. So for something like Portra 400, when you red scale it, you want to rate the film somewhere between ISO 25 to 100 to compensate. A film with a clearer base like Kodak Aerocolor might only need 1 to 2 stops of overexposure to compensate when you red scale it, because the base is one of the bigger factors here. 35mm and 4x5 film are pretty fine, as you'll see, but I hate red scaling 120, and I've personally pretty much given up on doing it. And I'm not good at it, as you'll see, so I just want to give you a vague idea of how to go about the process. In this video, I'm not using color film for the demonstration though, because that would be wasteful. I am exposing the film to light to show you how to do this. So I'm using Fomapan 100 instead as a step-in, but the overall concept applies for color film. Some people prefer wearing gloves when they do this, but I just wash my hands. This buys you about 15 to 20 minutes of oil-free skin before the oils really start to build up again. And it should go without saying, but you have to do this in absolute darkness. Like I said, I'm ruining this film to show you how to do this. So whenever you see this white border change to black, that means whatever I'm showing you has to be done in the dark. Safe in the light, done in the dark. Got it? With your film, scissors, and tape all in the dark, pull the film all the way out of the can, doing your best to handle it only by the edges. Spool the film up into a bundle to keep it together and minimize the amount of film that's exposed, and then cup it in your hand like this before making the straightest possible cut about 1 centimeter from the mouth of the canister. For reference, I would say that the tongue I've left here is a bit on the long side, but not so long it's going to be a problem. The easiest way to flip the film is not, and to flip the canister instead, so that you can keep the film cupped securely and safely in your hand. Try to avoid overlapping the two ends and just touch them together before taping them down. A lot of people who bulk load, including myself, would recommend using specific bulk loading tape because it's stronger and more secure than things like sellotape or electrical tape. If you use sellotape or the like and put the film in a point and shoot, or if you just have a very quick advance on your SLR or your rangefinder with your thumb, you can rip that tape and disconnect the film from the can, and then you have to unload the film in the dark. That's just something to be aware of, but you can use regular sellotape. Best practice and what actually works aren't necessarily always the same thing. Put a piece of tape on the other side, and here you can see that I did overlap the ends a little bit because my cut wasn't perfectly straight. Some people prefer to wrap the tape all the way around the edges too. I don't, and I've never had problems, but just to be aware, some people do that. It might be worth trying if you have issues. You might need to give the film a little bit of a hand getting started back going into the can, but just spool it all the way back in. And you can do this by hand like I did, or put a screwdriver or something in the slot on the axle of the canister so it doesn't take forever. But now the leader is the wrong way around, and though some electronic advanced cameras can take this as is, or with the leader just cut straight, it can't be loaded into most regular 35mm cameras like this. So just cut a vaguely leader-like shape into it, and the shape really doesn't need to be perfect. You know, even the shape of commercially available leaders varies quite a bit, and some people cut straight diagonals, some people cut like a square pattern. It doesn't actually matter that much as long as, you know, it's narrower on one end to fit into that slot. And that's all you need to do. For 120 film, unwrap the outer foil and remove the tape. This Fomapan tape is cheaper paper tape, and that will come into play again later, so I just replaced it with electrical tape. Ignore that. Most color film does use a more plasticky tape that you can reattach a lot more easily. And remove the outer tape, then store it somewhere securely so it doesn't get stuck to the film or anything like that. I usually keep it on my wrist or the back of my hand. If you haven't seen 120 film unwrapped before, the backing paper goes down the whole length of the film and beyond, with a leader portion before the film starts and a tail afterwards. This tape at the starting end, just along the leader, holds the film under tension so that when you pull the backing paper, when you advance the film, it pulls the film along with the paper. This is where it starts to get annoying and where a changing tent rather than a changing bag or an actual darkroom with a decently sized table might be a more practical option. Unwrap the whole length of the film until the untaped end comes loose, and if you're good at this, unlike me, you'll catch the film and spool it up like with the 35mm stuff and not make your own eldritch spaghetti mess. Now you have to flip the film over. The starting position of the film relative to the backing paper is very important for 120 because for the vast majority of cameras, when you insert the film and load it, you align an arrow on the backing paper itself with an arrow inside your camera. This is just standardized across rolls of 120 film. So when you close the back and start advancing, whichever direction it is on your camera, the camera is advancing a set amount and just assuming that the film is in the correct place. There are very few cameras, like some of the Rolleiflexes, that can mechanically tell when the film has started or when it has reached the start of the film, so it's not as precise there, but broadly speaking, you do need to get the film retaped in the exact position where it was before, just upside down. Again, better films will use better tapes than this, so just flip the film over, retape it as close to the original position as possible, and try and keep it so the paper and film remain parallel. This next part is where clean hands or gloves are important. Using that tape as a sort of anchor, go down the whole length of the film while keeping it together with the backing paper until you reach the end of the actual film. Once you do, tuck it into the feed spool along with the backing paper and start re-spooling them together onto that feed spool, keeping the two of them tight to each other and the paper and film tight to the spool so you don't end up with a fat roll. When you get back to the start of the film, there should be no bulge where it's taped, but there was a little bit of a bulge here, and I have no idea what the standards are here, if that's a relatively okay bulge or if that's catastrophically bad. So I just undid the tape and moved the start of the film a few millimeters forward, which is probably fine. Then re-spool the paper leader, tape it securely to seal the roll back together, and that's it for your 120 red scale roll. I'm using 4x5 sheet film here, but of course this applies to any sheet film format. In the dark, open up the box and the inner packaging, then remove a sheet of film and try and handle the film by the edges and at the same time find the notch code on one of the corners. Put it aside and pack the box back up just to keep things tidy inside your changing bag and grab your holder. With the holder and film facing vertically, the emulsion side is facing you if the notch is in the top right corner or the bottom left corner. That's TR or BL, so if you're having trouble loading 4x5 or other sheet film, normally it's trouble TRBL. In this case, we want to do the exact opposite thing, so the emulsion side faces away from the lens. So unlock your holder, open the dark slide, open that bottom flap, and insert the sheet with the notch on the top left or the bottom right. Push it all the way in, close the flap, and seal up the dark slide. That's it. In order of ascending difficulty, sheet film is the easiest by a wide margin. It's exactly the same physical process as loading sheet film normally, you're just doing it with the notch code in the wrong place and the film facing the wrong way around. There's nothing really to say there, it's dead easy. 35mm is a bit more complicated, you do have to be a bit more careful and there is a risk of scratching the film quite a bit more because aside from, okay, I shoot all three formats, the average person doesn't shoot 4x5 and probably isn't used to handling rolls of bare 35mm, so it can be a bit stressful. The main things to bear in mind are to get that cut as straight as possible so that things line up nicely, and to use a decent tape or be careful when you're actually at the end of the roll. I think I've red scaled 4 rolls of color film myself at this point over the last couple of years, and yeah, it's fine. It's not the worst task you might ever have to do with film. And if you are unsure, do what I did and buy a roll of Fomapan 100 or whatever's cheapest for you and just sacrifice it to practice. It's fine. 120 on the other hand is an absolute pain in the ass. I'm terrible at it, but it is difficult. And it's something that I've pretty much just given up on doing at home. Again, with only one red scale color film available in medium format, which I don't like, red scale is basically dead to me in medium format unless someone were to bring out a super ideal film in 120 or 220 in red scale. If anyone has any actual tips, please drop them in the comments down below. I hope I've given people a decent idea of what to expect and the broad strokes of what's involved in red scaling medium format film, or at least 120. But I'm not good at it and I've never succeeded in any of the attempts that I've made. So if there are any of you out there who do this on a semi-regular basis and know how to do it properly, please share your wisdom with the rest of us. I will talk about how red scale works at a technical level in another video down the line, but that's all I have to say for today. So stay safe and bye bye for now. If you don't already, follow me on Instagram at shaka1277 for new pictures every day. If you liked this video and enjoy what I do on the channel, please consider subscribing or checking out my Patreon, where the tiers start at just €1 per month.